Hi everyone, Kevin here. Today, we're going to learn how to use Google Sheets. Google Sheets is free spreadsheet software that you can use to get insights from your data. We're going to start with the absolute basics. First, we'll look at how you can even get Google Sheets. And I know when you open up Google Sheets for the first time, it may very well feel like you're in the cockpit of a jet plane. There are so many different menus, so many different buttons. What do they all do? Once we cover the basics, then we'll advance to formulas and functions, inserting charts, using pivot tables, even collecting data from forms. By the end of this video, you'll be a pro in using Google Sheets. Along with this video, I also highly recommend using the official training provided by Google. They offer courses on getting started with Google Sheets, advanced topics, using functions, formulas, and charts. You'll find links to these resources down below in the description. Here as an example, I'm currently in the functions, formulas, and charts quest, and it's made up of all of these different labs. When I click into the pivot table lab, here you can read all about pivot tables and how they work. But even better, you can follow along side by side where you actually learn by doing. And personally, I think that's the best way to learn. Once you create your pivot table, you can check your progress to make sure that you learned everything correctly. At the very end, you can even earn a badge that shows the world your understanding of Google Sheets. Once again, you'll find links to these resources down below in the description. What even is Google Sheets? Google Sheets is spreadsheet software that allows you to analyze and get insights from your data. Basically, it tells you the story behind your data. Here at the Kevin Cookie Company, we use Google Sheets to track all of our cookie sales data. With conditional formatting, I can very quickly see, well, which month was the best and which month was the worst. I could also insert a chart, and that way I can visualize the data over time. I can use pivot tables to make sense of my data just by dragging and dropping my mouse. And best of all, I can even work together with others. We're going to look at all of these topics and more. There are a few different ways that you can get started using Google Sheets. First, head to the website google.com, and in the top right-hand corner, click on the app launcher. If you don't yet have a Google account, you'll need to set one up, but it's completely free to do that. Within the app launcher, here I see the icon for Google Sheets. Now, you can also press and hold on this to move it to a new position to make it easier to get back to it in the future. When you click on this icon, this drops you on the start page of Google Sheets. Now, alternatively, you can also navigate directly to the website sheets.google.com, and this will also drop you directly onto the start page. If you prefer to jump directly into a new spreadsheet, you can go to Google Drive. Also in the app launcher, click on Drive. And in the top left-hand corner, you can click on this new button, and here you have the option to create a new spreadsheet. And this will drop you in a blank new spreadsheet. You can also navigate to the URL sheets.new, and this too will also drop you into a new blank spreadsheet. On the Google Sheets start page, in the top left-hand corner, we can kick off a blank new workbook, and in a moment we'll do that. But first, over on the right-hand side, you can also start from a template. When I click on this text, this expands the template gallery, and you have many different options here. It's well worth a look to see if maybe one of these templates meets your needs. I'll click on the back button in the top left-hand corner. To get back to your spreadsheet, you can use the recent list down below. You have different sorting options, and you could visualize these files in different ways. Up on top, you can also search for a file using this search field. Now, let's say that maybe you have a spreadsheet on your computer, maybe in Microsoft Excel format. You can click on this file picker icon, and then you can upload a spreadsheet from your computer, and then you can use Google Sheets to edit it. I'll click on the X icon. Now, let's kick off a blank new workbook. I want to track the Kevin Cookie Company sales data, so let's click on this. This drops us into a blank new workbook. And to return back to the start page, in the top left-hand corner, I can click on this Sheets icon. And here that brings us back to the page that we were just on. But I do need to get some work done, so let's once again click into a blank new workbook. Here in the workbook, in the top left-hand corner, you see that the title is currently Untitled Spreadsheet. I want to give this spreadsheet a name, so here I'll double-click, And I'll delete that, and then I'll enter in the name Cookie Sales Analysis. And feel free to do the same if you would like to follow along. The spreadsheet now has a name, and I see a few additional icons over on the right-hand side. When I click on the folder icon, here I can see where this file is saved, and it's currently in my drive, and here it's under Cookie Sales Analysis. But I can also create an additional folder if I want to save it in a different location. Over here, I also have this star icon, and when I click on this, this stars my file. So what does that do? Well, here, let's click on this storage icon again, and here I can go into my drive. When I go to my drive, here I see all of my files. But there's a category on the left-hand side called starred, and when I click on that, here I can see that Cookie Sales Analysis. This makes it easier to get back to the files that you care about. I'll click on the Cookie Sales Analysis, and this brings me right back into the spreadsheet again. Also, over on the right-hand side, we see this cloud icon. And when I click on that, I can see that all changes have been saved to Drive. As we work on this spreadsheet, you don't have to go to the File menu and save it. It'll automatically save every single change that you're making. Also, if you want to work on this spreadsheet while you're offline, so let's say you have no internet access, you can turn on offline access. You will need to install an extension to be able to do that. Let's now shift our focus down below to all of these rectangles. These rectangles, these are all referred to as cells. On the sheet, you'll also notice that we have all of these columns with letters, and we have all of these rows with numbers. To refer to one of these cells, we use the intersection of the column and the row. Here I have my mouse in cell A1. So you start with the column followed by the row. Also, when I click into this cell, up here in the top left-hand corner, we see the reference to A1. Here, if I shift into B2, here we now see the reference to B2. When I hover over this, you see that this is referred to as the name box, and you also see the associated shortcut key. And all of the different buttons on the toolbar here have similar tool tips. Here, when I hover over, here I can see that this is the bold icon, and I can also see the associated shortcut key. If you're ever unsure what one of these buttons does on the toolbar, you can simply hover over and that'll tell you what it is. I now want to start entering some data into this spreadsheet, but before I do that, I do want to adjust the zoom. Over here on the left-hand side, I can click on this drop-down and I'll adjust the zoom to, let's say 150%. And that'll make things a little bit easier to see. I'll now go back to cell A1 and I want to type in a header for my table. Here I'll type in sales. Then I can press the tab key or the right arrow key and that'll move me over to cell B1. And here I'll type in date. I can now press enter or the down arrow key and that'll move me to cell B2. And here I want to enter all of the different months of the year to keep track of all of our sales data. So of course the first month of the year is January 2022. And then the second month is February 2022. And I don't want to make you watch me fill out all the months of the year. That would take a long time. Instead, I've established a pattern here. Here I typed in 1 month of the year followed by another month. So hopefully Google Sheets is smart enough to follow this pattern. I'll highlight both of these cells. And when I highlight them, we see this blue square in the bottom right-hand corner. And when I hover over it, my cursor changes to a plus icon. I can press on this and then drag down to row 13, and then I'll release. And here you see that Google Sheets was smart enough to follow this pattern all the way through the end of the year. And that brings me down to December 2022. That was a lot easier than typing it out. This is called Smart Fill. I can also use Smart Fill with numbers. In January, this is our worst month of the year. We only sold 1,000 cookies. People have New Year's resolutions and they just decide not to eat as many cookies. I'll press the enter key. And then here for February, we doubled our sales to 2,000. I'll enter 2,000. And here I've established a pattern. It increases by 1,000 between months. Here I could click on this blue icon again, and I could drag all the way down through December, and here it follows that pattern to 12,000 sales. Now, of course, we don't just have a straight line of sales. I want to randomize things a little bit just to make this analysis more interesting. Here I'll highlight November through February data. Then I'll right click, and at the very bottom of this context menu, we have the option to view more cell actions. And here's the option to randomize the range. I'll click on that, and here that randomizes the order of all of these numbers. This gives us some good data to work with. We have all of the sales data entered in now, but it is a little bit hard to read. I think I could format these numbers better. I'll highlight all of these numbers. And up on the top menus, there's the option for Format. When I click on this, here I could select different number formats. Here I could format the text, I could set the alignment, I could set the wrapping, the rotation, so I have many different options here. Now, I'll exit out of this menu. Down here in the toolbar, I also have some of the most frequently used formatting options. Here, I could click on this dropdown, and here you'll notice I get this same menu where I could format the numbers. I'll format it as a number. Here with sales, it doesn't make sense to include decimals because we're not going to sell a fraction of a cookie, so I want to remove those decimals. Up here in the bar, I can also decrease the decimal places. I could click on that twice, and that removes the decimals. Over here, I could re-add them, but I don't want them, so I'll remove that. Looking down below, I should probably provide some context as to why cookie sales are so horrible in January and why they're so good in December. I mean, maybe we have someone new join the company and they don't know the cyclical nature of the business. Here in column C, I'll type in note as one of the column headers, and let me type in an explanation for why January is so bad. Next, I'll go down to December and type in a reason here. I've now typed in both reasons, and I think that provides some good context. But one thing I don't like is you'll notice the contents of the cell bleed into the adjacent cells. Luckily, I can adjust the width of the column. Here I'll click between columns C and D, and here I could drag it out so it fits all of the contents. Now, instead of dragging that out, here I'll press this undo button. Here you'll see the shortcut key is Control-Z. I'll undo that. Here I could also double click between columns C and D, and that'll automatically adjust the width to fit the content that's within the largest cell. Let's say that maybe you have a lot of columns or a lot of rows where you want to fit to the content. Here in the top left-hand corner, I can click right here, and this highlights all of the columns and all of the rows. Here I can double click between two of the columns, and that'll adjust all of them to best fit. And I could do the same for the rows. Looking at this data, I don't know if it makes sense to show sales and then the date. I think I'd rather show the date first. So do I have to delete this column and then re-enter everything? No, of course not. It's really easy to move data around. Here I'll go up to column B, and here I'll click on it, and you notice that my cursor changes to a hand icon. Here I can press again, and this now grabs that column, and I can now move that to a new position. Here I'll place that column ahead of sales, and that switches the position. It's really that easy. All of the data here is really solid, but I'm not quite satisfied with the look and feel. Let's go back up to the Format menu to see what we can do here. Here at the very bottom, there's the option for alternating colors. Let's select that. This adds some very nice formatting to this table. Here I see a treatment on the headers, and I also see banded rows. Over on the right-hand side, it opens up this pane where I can customize what this table looks like. Here, I could choose different styles. Maybe let's go with this yellow one. It's amazing what yellow can do to brighten up the picture, and it really makes my boss have a more positive perception of all of this data. It really does wonders. Let's now close out this pane. When I look at this table, it's coming along nicely, but I think I can also apply some formatting to make the numbers stand out a little more. So maybe some formatting when a number is really good and a number is really bad. I'll highlight all of these numbers, and let's go back to the Format menu. Right by alternating colors, there's the option for conditional formatting. Let's select that. Over on the right-hand side, here again, we see a pane that allows us to customize the conditional formatting. Conditional formatting is really neat. You can format the cells if, and you have all these different conditions. You could say if it's greater than something, you want to format it in a certain way, or if it's less than something. You could even enter custom formulas in. So you have lots of different options here. Now, I want a good sales number to be green and a bad sales number to be red. So over here, there's the option for a color scale. I'll click on that. And over here, I can preview the different formats. I'll click on this, and I think this option might work. Let's select that. So here I see that December, we had really good sales and it's in green. And here in January, it wasn't so good and it's in red. This way we can visually just look at it and know which months were good and which months were bad. Here I have many other options as well. I'm all done with the conditional formatting now, so I'll click on the X icon. Over here, I have my column C with the note, but come to think of it, most of the people who are going to review this data already know why January is bad and why December is good. So including this information isn't really necessary. But at the same time, if someone new joins a company, maybe they don't know these reasons, so I don't want to delete it. Here I can right click on column C, and here I get this context menu. Within this menu, there's the option to hide the column. So here I can hide the column when I show it to people who've been at the company for a while. And then maybe when someone new joins the company, here I could hover over between columns B and D. Here you see these arrow icons indicating that there's a hidden column. Here I could click on this icon and that once again shows that column, but I want to hide it. I'll right click and let's hide the column. Thinking about this some more, we're also supposed to get sales data for other countries. So I want to add one more column with the country. I want to add it before the date column. Here I'll click on column A and I could right click and I can insert another column to the left. Now let's say I wanted to insert two columns. Here I could highlight columns A and B, right click, and here I could insert two columns. So you could insert any number of columns, simply highlight the number you want, and then you can insert those. I just want one column. I'll click here and then insert one column to the left. For this column here, I'll type in country, and the country is going to be the United States. Here, I'll select this and then drag it all the way down, and that'll copy that value to the bottom. Here, let me undo this and show you one more way to fill this down. Instead of dragging and dropping it down, I could simply double click here and that'll fill it all the way to the bottom of the data. So another quick way to fill in some data. As I scroll down the sheet, you'll notice that the header no longer appears. I know this is the number of sales, but it'd be nice if the header just stayed there just to remind me of that. Here, I can go up to the View menu, and there's the option to freeze. Here, I can freeze the top row, the first two rows, or I can really just freeze any number of rows. And I could also do the same for the columns. I just want to freeze the top row. I'll select one row, and here that is now frozen that row. Here, I can now scroll down and I continue to see the header. To undo that, I could go back to the View menu, here go to Freeze, and then I could select No Rows, and that'll remove the freezing. But I want it there, so I'll leave that in place. The formatting all looks fantastic now, but I need to be able to answer some basic business questions about this data. Like, what were the total sales for the year? Or how did we perform in the first quarter of the year? How many cookies did we sell? Luckily, Google Sheets has lots of tools that can help me with this, and I don't even have to enter a formula or a function. I just have to know the question that I want to answer. I'll put the active cell here in column C. Then I'll go up to the Data menu. And right here, there's the option for column stats. When I click on that, that opens up a pane over on the right